Dude, you need to get over here. I'm totally shocked at that point. Let's get into it. I'm gonna tell you a story from when I was in my second year in architecture school, and it basically changed the trajectory of my life. I don't wanna be like too dramatic, but it was pretty big even though it didn't seem like it at the time. I'm working on a project that's taking place over the last 8 weeks of my second semester of my second year of architecture school. So I'm almost done my second year. The project was a spa for some faculty of NYU. So the project is obviously in New York City. It's at the northeast corner of Washington Square Park. The project was sponsored by NCMA, which is the National Concrete and Masonry Association. It was sponsored, so there was a cash prize. It was actually a competition. I think the winner got $1,000, second place got $500, and third place got $250. There were still like 55 to 65 students left in my class at that time by the end of second year, and we were all competing against each other. So at the time, I was actually considering dropping out of architecture school. It was just a lot and really draining and wearing on me, and I was just like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. I'm sure a lot of people watching this that are in architecture school or have gone through it can probably relate. Maybe you've also thought about dropping out at some point. I know a lot of the people that I knew that I went to school with thought about it at some point, even if it was fleeting. So I was thinking about dropping out, and my friends are trying to brainstorm with me. So like, what would I do if I dropped out? I thought about doing psychology. I had a psychology 101 class, and I thought just from like that 1 hour a week that I might actually want to do a career in it without really thinking about it any further. The other thing I thought of was dropping out and going to culinary school, whether that was at Penn State. I don't even know if they had that program or if that was somewhere else. So with like 2.5, 3 weeks left of the project, I had a shitty concept, a shitty building, and a shitty Revit model, and I was not excited about the project at all. I felt like I was just going through the motions at that point. I had already planned to go visit my friend at her school in Virginia that upcoming weekend, so I was like, screw it, I'll figure it out when I get back, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do considering I only had like 2 weeks left to finish the project at that point. That was also probably the first time in 2 years that I had planned on not doing studio for an entire weekend. Like, I don't think I ever did that. I don't even know if there was hardly a day where I didn't work on studio, let alone like 3-4 days. But I didn't even take my computer with me. We had laptops, so I just left it. And I was like, screw it, I'll do it later. So by the time I came back, I was dreading working on the project. I had 2 weeks ago, I was still stuck with this shitty project that I absolutely hated, and I just did not want to finish it out. I obviously still wasn't happy with my concept, so I tried making a couple more cardboard models to see if I could get anywhere with any fresh ideas, anything, but still hated it. As I'm sitting there like looking at my cardboard model on my desk, one of my friends comes over and he's sitting there looking at it with me or trying to come up with some ideas. And he's like, well, one of my professors always says if I don't like my model or if I can't come up with anything new, if I don't have any ideas, just turn it upside down, see if that gives you anything new. We tried that, nothing. So then he was like, I don't know, why don't you just cut it in half? So we tried that. I got out my big saw. I'm talking like sawing a log in half saw. I get this thing out of my locker and I'm just like, well, I don't have anything else to lose. So I just go to town, saw this thing in half, and I just like flipped the pieces around and like magically, boom, it just hit me and I had an idea. The first time in 6-7 weeks, I had an actual idea. The model had these big cylindrical towers. So once I cut it in half and I flipped it around, I got this idea for these giant like drum-shaped water towers that would be at the top of this spa building in New York. And then they could be filled with water, like flowing into maybe a rooftop pool. And then those tanks could be constantly refilled from the bottom. And then the water could also be flowing down the front facade of the building, overlooking the park. I thought that could be really cool. So then I got to work figuring out the new concept, drawing up some new floor plans, getting it modeled in Revit. I had a lot to do considering I had 8 weeks worth of work to do in 2 weeks. So the competition required everybody to present the same size and shape presentation board. I really wanted my project to stand out. At this point, I'm excited. So I got to work in Revit on trying to figure out the best way to render water. Because at this point, this is like 2010, I think, 2011 maybe. And rendering in Revit is not super sophisticated. And obviously none of us knew how to render in any like more advanced programs to get anything better out of it. We're all just kind of stuck with like hitting the render button in Revit for the most part. So I was like just starting to experiment with some Revit cloud renderings, and I found some settings that made the water actually look like real pools of water, and I was amazed by how they turned out. I also decided to go with 2 night renderings, one from the ground and one from the rooftop. Those would be the focal points of my presentation, and I'm really glad that I did because they really paid off. I was really proud of what I was able to produce. So I finished out the project. We all pin our boards up like all around one big room. And I think the judging was taking place at like 5 or 6 o'clock. At that point, I fully did not expect to place in this competition. I had like 2 weeks of work put together compared to everyone else who's actually been working on their project for 8 weeks. So no expectations. I was back in my dorm. I wasn't even in the building when the judging was going on because I was like, I don't need to waste my time on this. I'm in my dorm just hanging out, and then I get a call from my friend, the same one who told me to cut my model in half, and he's like, dude, you need to get over here. You got 2nd place. I'm totally shocked at that point. I did not expect to win. I actually placed in this thing with my measly 2 weeks worth of work. I run over to studio and the judging's already done. I ended up with the $500 prize, and it turns out that I only came in 2nd to one of my good friends who we all viewed as the top of our class. So I was very happy about that. So it's the next day, judging's over, project's done. It's the end of the semester, and I kind of have to figure out if I'm gonna drop out. Remember, I was thinking about that like 2 weeks ago. So I thought about it some more, and I kind of rationalized, well, I placed 2nd in this architecture competition out of like 60 people. So I guess I must be pretty good at this architecture thing. So I decided to stick with it. As I look back on it now, cutting the model in half basically saved my career in architecture. Who knew? Alright, so if you guys like that story and you want to hear more like it in the future, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.